Good morning, folks. It's the San Jacinto Trail Report from San Jacinto Peak. Today is Thursday, the 6th of April 2023. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning. Just take a quick pan around, looking out to the east and then south. You can probably see right at about 11,000 feet from there down, there's a really thick layer of haze. Same was up here yesterday. We had strong winds from the west for 2 or 3 days, and I'm assuming that it just brought all the smog and crap from the LA basin from the west towards us. It looks disconcertingly like it does when there's a fire in the area, a wildfire, but fortunately we don't have to think about that for another few months. San Bernardino range back behind me there, and the cornice here in the foreground is still more or less there, although the best bits are broken off. Fair bit of melting up here. Hasn't actually been that warm so far, but just the direct sun alone's enough. These two little treetops, they're normally about 7 or 8 feet high. Gives you an idea of the depth of the snow, but they were almost completely covered when I came up after the last storm broke trail on the 31st of March a week ago. They were almost completely covered. They're now exposed we've probably lost at least 6 to 10 inches in the last week. So a couple of major bits of news. I got word at first light this morning that the state park wilderness reopens tomorrow morning, Friday the 7th, and however, Skyline Trail, the lower 2/3 of the C2C route, is not reopening. The closure on that is indefinite. Based on some things I've read and heard, doesn't sound like that will reopen. Maybe could be as late as June. Anyway, just because the state park wilderness has reopened does not mean that there are lots of easy hiking tracks everywhere. I'll get onto the couple of tracks that there are in place in due course. In terms of PCT hikers specifically, I've been surveying for which sections of the PCT do not have any tracks on right now. From here we can see over my shoulder, where are we looking? Somewhere in around here, the Apache Peak and the section that comes around via Spitler and through to Red Tuckwitz. So there is currently no track on that section from about mile 169 coming to Apache Peak and through to about mile 175 at least. I couldn't find any tracks from about at least 175 through to about 177. The snow's relatively thin on that section, by which I mean sort of 6 to 10 inches. It will thin pretty rapidly. The other sections that currently don't have any tracks, I came by this morning, the section from Annie's Junction about 180.8 through to Strawberry Junction near 183. That has no track on it. And for somebody who's not done it before, route finding would not be easy. And then Fuller Ridge, so 185.5 to about 190.5 has no track on it. And that section would be distinctly tricky. It's not a great vista from here, but it's again over my shoulder, kind of down in here. Snow there is significantly thicker, harder, and route finding again will not be easy. The other kind of related piece of news is that we get a substantial warming trend over the next week in particular. This weekend's going to be very warm, well above average at all elevations. Today's the warmest day I've had up here for this year, so at least 3 pushing 4 months probably at this point, and relatively calm. So it's going to get well above average. It'll probably get as high as maybe 40 or even above 40 degrees here at the peak. We're looking at some 70 Fahrenheit temperatures. In Idlewild, that's 20 plus centigrade. So that will change the snow conditions quite dramatically. The conditions have been really quite benign the last few days because it's been pleasantly cold. I've done 3 ascents in the last 5 days. The track I put in on March the 31st has held up really well. We had a little dusting a few days ago, but it didn't really change the track. And some other folks have been up and that's helped compact that in. So I've been able to come up. 5 days ago I carried crampons, snowshoes and micro spikes, was able to ascend all the way with just spikes. The last 2 days I've come up with spikes and crampons but only needed spikes. But again, I'm getting an alpine start. I'm up early and getting back down pretty quickly as well. It really does, even on these cooler days, it's been softening up quite a lot in the late morning. I can see people who are descending trails like Devil's Slide Trail in the afternoons are post-holing pretty badly, sort of knee-deep at times. There'll be a lot more of that over the next few days. Sort of a certain degree of irony that the state park wilderness opens up just in time for the conditions to get considerably more complicated underfoot. So, for example, if you came up in the mornings, you might be cool enough to still be able to get a fair distance with, say, spikes. But I would certainly be carrying snowshoes, because by the afternoon, late morning, afternoon, and possibly even earlier in the mornings on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, when it's going to be really warm, snowshoes are going to be needed to get across the relatively deep snow. You can post hole, of course, but you know, some of that depends on fitness level. Post holing tends to use more energy than snowshoeing across the top. Once more and more people have come up, which obviously now the trails are open will happen, then trails will get more compacted in, but the next cooling is not for about another 7 to 8 days. I think Thursday, Friday next week. Don't remember, what's that, the 13th and 14th, I think. Then it cools, not as cool as it's been, but probably cool enough to harden trails. So that's the current state of play. In terms of PCT hikers, almost everyone I've seen, spoken to, they are doing 151 through to about either 166, which is Phobes, or 168.5, which is the Spittler alternate, coming off at one or other of those, and then into Idlewild, and then getting back on the trail using the Black Mountain Road alternate, which has a reasonable amount of snow but also has a pretty well traveled track at this point, and that gets you back on the trail at about mile 191. And from there down the trail, there is some snow initially, but the trail's, you know, been well traveled. So that's that remains the recommended option for the time being, until tracks are put in different places. And today's a particularly beautiful day in the San Jacinto Mountains, and safe hiking, everyone.